Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Friday, August 28th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Ready, set, and reopen. Today we got the news businesses have been waiting for ever since San Diego County was taken off the state's watch list nearly 2 weeks ago. Governor Newsom announced a new tier system that puts our county under less restrictive guidelines. Health reporter Taryn Mento breaks down who can reopen and when.
Thank you.
Many of San Diego's establishments are cleared to reopen indoor operations with modifications on Monday. The state now says salons can open fully. Restaurants, places of worship, movie theaters, and museums are limited to 25% capacity, while gyms are limited to 10%.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you for attending today's special briefing.
Just hours after it was released by the governor, County Public Health Officer Dr. Wilma Wooten held an unplanned news conference to confirm reopenings can happen Monday. But she says she's a little worried.
Obviously, we are all concerned about this. Again, this is trying to strike a balance between economic viability and protecting the public's health.
Wooten does have the authority to implement more restrictive measures in San Diego than what the state allows. But she didn't make that decision today. But she says she could in the future.
We didn't have any participation in that information before it was posted. So we will be looking at if there is the need to be more restrictive. I just can't tell you what that will be today and right now.
The reopenings come amid the state's new system that's broken up into 4 color-coded tiers based on daily case rates and testing positivity. Most of the state, 38 counties in all, are in the most restrictive tier, which is purple. To move to a less restrictive tier, counties must wait a mandatory 21 days and meet the tier's metrics for 2 weeks. Governor Gavin Newsom says the system was designed to move slower than the last reopening.
We're going to be more stubborn this time and have a mandatory wait time between moves. We didn't do that last time, and that is a significant distinction between what we've learned from the past and what we now are advancing.
San Diego's case rate earned it the second most restrictive tier of red. At Bivouac Cider Works in North Park, owner Laura Worm says the reopening is somewhat bittersweet.
I think when there are loosening of restrictions, people have a little bit of relief of anxiety that hopefully will allow them to go out again.
But with that relief comes concern.
Of course, on the other hand, I then feel anxiety about people coming out, being close to each other, the precautions that I have to put in place, the training that I have to give my staff.
She says these aren't the challenges she expected to face when she first launched her business. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
Today, the county reported 3 additional deaths from the virus and 285 new cases. Dr. Wooten says Monday reopenings will not affect schools that are cleared to open on Tuesday. And you can find the latest information at kpbs.org on our Tracking COVID-19 page. We have redesigned the layout to make it easier to find the information you need. Just click the Tracking COVID-19 link on our homepage. It's happened again, another deadly incident off our coast involving local military personnel. 2 members of Army Special Operations were killed last night and 3 service members were injured during a training exercise. Details are being withheld pending the notification of the family, but the Army is investigating. It comes after 9 service members were killed on July 30th when their AAV sank off the coast of San Clemente Island. Today, one of those service members killed in July was laid to rest at Miramar National Cemetery. Lance Corporal Chase D. Sweetwood died the day before his 19th birthday. Sweetwood was remembered in a funeral that included military honors and a procession from the Patriot Guard Riders. He was born in San Diego. His family now lives in Portland, Oregon. 57 years after the March of Washington, people rallied at the Lincoln Memorial again today, calling for racial justice. This march includes family members of people whose names, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and now Jacob Blake, have become a rallying cry for change. Emily Schmidt has the latest.
History echoing on the National Mall.
This is the commitment march in the spirit of 1963.
But for many gathered on Friday, it also seems to be repeating.
The progress we celebrated then is imperiled yet again.
Jacob Blake Sr. says his father was at the first march. Now he is here because his son, Jacob Blake Jr., was shot multiple times in the back at close range by a Kenosha police officer last weekend. He's hospitalized, and his father says he's paralyzed from the waist down and asking tough questions.
Why did they shoot me so many times? And I said, baby, they weren't supposed to shoot you at all.
2 Kenosha police officers are now on administrative leave, and the shooting is under investigation. The Blake shooting joins a summer of headline-making incidents between police and people of color that have sparked protests around the world. But despite the growing chorus for change, President Trump did not publicly mention Blake's name during the Republican National Convention.
We must never allow mob rule.
Blake's father says the family spoke for about an hour with Democratic ticket nominees Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, who are speaking out.
We have an opportunity to make history right here and right now.
The White House says efforts have been made to connect Trump with the Blake family. Meanwhile, in Washington, history marches on. Emily Schmidt, KPBS News.
Teachers, parents, and students are getting ready to resume in-person classes. County officials say with a case rate below state targets, all schools can reopen starting on Monday. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman takes us inside 2 East County schools to show us what classes will look like during the pandemic.
If they arrive healthy, they're going to remain healthy throughout the day, and we're going to send them home healthy at the end of the day.
Blossom Valley Elementary Principal Kirk Hoban says they've proven they can take care of kids safely, hosting a summer daycare program where no coronavirus cases were reported among staff or students.
At all grade levels from K through 5th grade, I had an amazing group of teachers who volunteered to come in and be the ones to try this out. And we were able to safely bring kids back.
Blossom Valley in El Cajon is part of the Cajon Valley Union School District and plans to welcome back kids after Labor Day weekend.
Nobody hasn't been impacted.
This classroom layout gives us an idea of what that will look like. Hoban says they've learned a lot from summer daycare.
The daily arrival and departure of kids, I think, was one of the greatest challenges, because normally you're not having to pay attention to things like social distancing and do kids have masks.
Blossom Valley will keep individual classes isolated from each other. That way kids can still go out for activities like recess.
I think the biggest eye-opener, we know schools are a social place and we know how important that is, but I don't think we realized how important and how critical that social element is, both for kids and the families.
All of this in an effort to make the return to the classroom feel as normal as possible while protecting kids and families from the virus.
The majority of our school district wants to go back to school.
Cajon Valley trustee Jim Miller says to make in-person instruction possible, all students and staff will be required to wear face coverings. The district with more than 15,000 students has been doing classes virtually for about a week now.
It's been going pretty good. There's been some technical difficulties, but overall it's been going pretty good.
Are there going to be hiccups? Absolutely. There's hiccups every day in every profession, whether there's a pandemic or not, right? The question then becomes is, how do you overcome those?
Are you guys the road runners?
Yes, we are. Lakeview Roadrunner.
Just a few miles away in Lakeside at Lakeview Elementary, preparations are also underway to welcome students back to campus.
The bottom line is that our system was not really designed to function this way, so we're reworking kind of all of our systems.
Lakeside Union School District Superintendent Andy Johnson says they're doing things a little differently. They're committing to at least 4 weeks of distance learning. Classes started online last week, and like Cajon Valley, officials are giving parents the option to return to in-person learning near the end of September.
We felt it was really important to give parents a choice. So those parents who want to stay in distance learning all year long have that option.
To make in-person classes a reality again for its more than 5,000 kids, students and staff in all grade levels will be required to wear face coverings, and students will be encouraged to wash their hands every hour to hour and a half. Restrooms will be cleaned hourly and classrooms nightly.
So our maintenance and operations team actually designed and then built these hand washing stations.
The district is hoping these outdoor sinks will promote frequent hand washing. Schools have also been asked to remove high-touch areas.
Water fountains are turned off, and all the kids will have a bottle filling station. All the schools have a bottle filling station where the kids can get their water.
Classrooms here don't feature those plastic dividers that Cajon Valley is using.
Tables stay facing forward, spaced out.
Lakeside Union will also be doing daily health screenings.
We do have thermometers. We've got these heat sensing thermometers for all of our staff. So we are going to do temperature checks of all of our students and staff every day.
That applies to anyone coming into the office as well. If a student feels sick or is exhibiting symptoms of the virus, they will be isolated on campus. But what about possible closures? San Diego County Office of Education Superintendent Paul Gothold says if 5% of students in class get the virus,
that classroom would automatically shut down for 14 days. If you're talking about an individual school, 5% again is the metric.
Individual school districts will communicate with parents if a student tests positive or if there's an outbreak. Administrators are asking for patience during this uncertain time. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
San Diego's largest school district is starting classes Monday, but for now only online. San Diego Unified announced it will bring about 12,000 elementary students back on campus for in-person learning in late September. The sessions are for students who are falling behind and those with special needs. They will be by appointment and limited to only a few students each. The district believes it is too risky to fully reopen based on other schools around the country that have opened, suffered coronavirus outbreaks, and then closed again.
We don't want to go through that starting and stopping situation in our district. And we believe that by proceeding cautiously and in phases, we're actually accelerating the time that we can bring all of our students back.
The students selected for in-person instruction will also participate in online learning. Everyone must wear a mask at all times on campus. Classrooms will undergo deep cleaning and be properly ventilated, and outdoor spaces may be used. San Diego County theme parks are eager to reopen after months of closures due to COVID-19. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says elected officials are asking the state for guidance.
Legoland in Carlsbad has been closed since mid-March. In July, it reopened its hotel and some retail inside the park, but the main attractions are still shut down. Park leaders are now asking Governor Gavin Newsom for permission to reopen. They're promising reduced capacity, temperature checks at the entrance, social distancing for ride lines, and face masks required for everyone over 3. The park's general manager, Kurt Stocks, says the few indoor rides would remain closed.
Legoland is mainly an outdoor park. We pride ourselves in the space we give to guests to enjoy our scenic landscape and our amazing Lego models. Like many businesses, we have put many of our staff on furlough, and the longer we remain closed, the longer many hardworking people go without a job.
Some theme parks are reopening in small ways. Today, SeaWorld San Diego kicked off a special food and beer event that will happen every weekend through September. But it's only allowed to reopen as a zoo. Outdoor exhibits and animal shows are open, but rides and indoor exhibits are closed. County Supervisor Jim Desmond says theme parks can reopen safely.
And all we're asking for is common sense standards so that we can open. And we want to keep people safe. We still need to fight the virus and respect that, but we need to get people back to work.
Desmond is among the county's loudest voices for a faster reopening and has spread misinformation on his podcast that downplays the seriousness of COVID-19. San Diego County is now off the state's watch list, thanks to declining infection rates. But it's still unclear when the state will allow theme parks to reopen and under what restrictions. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
San Diego County's annual crop report shows agriculture contributed nearly $2 billion in 2019. KPBS reporter John Carroll shows us how farmers are innovating to stay productive and profitable.
Agriculture in California, a powerhouse of the state's economy, contributing $50 billion of revenue a year, much of it coming from industrial-sized operations. And when you think about agriculture in California, that's what a lot of us think of, huge operations in the San Joaquin and Imperial Valleys. But when it comes to San Diego, most farms are somewhere in between that and this.
We have the most
family farms in the nation. We have the most small farms, so 69% of our farms are 1 to 9 acres in size.
The crop report shows the value of crops in San Diego County neared $1.8 billion in 2019. It hasn't been that high since 2014. But over the last several years, the acreage of farms has decreased. So why is the value of crops going up? Hannah Bay says it's because farmers here have gotten very good at adapting through innovation.
They're shifting their crops to really high value crops. They're shifting their crops to ones that don't require as much water, as much inputs, and they're reaping those benefits.
It highlights the determination and the resourcefulness of all of the ag producers.
A big part of Agricultural Commissioner Ha Dang's job is to support county farmers. In the time of COVID-19, that has meant making sure farmers know how to keep their workers safe.
And we provided about over 97,000 N95 and also disposable masks to the growers for their use for their agricultural workers.
The partnership has worked. Unlike in the San Joaquin and Imperial Valleys, farm workers in San Diego County have largely avoided contracting COVID.
We are in a severe labor shortage, and it does nobody any good to not take utmost care of your employees.
In spite of that, both Dang and Bay say the 2020 crop report won't be as bountiful as this one, thanks to COVID. But even then, Bay says the county's farmers continue to innovate to blunt the impact of the virus, to keep agriculture in the county blossoming for years to come. John Carroll, KPBS News.
Let's take a look at the drought status, and really we're not too far off the norm here, far from average here in Southern California, but across much of the interior it is a very dry time, and we've seen an underperforming monsoon season in places like Arizona with a little bit less moisture than normal in many areas. Well, as we take a look at the headlines here for us on KPBS, it's still hot. Relief is coming this weekend. That'll be a nice change. We'll have some cooler nights. By the way, earlier this past week, thermal broke a record for warmest overnight low for the month of August, and we're going to get that out of our system for a little while here with a couple of slightly cooler nights. There will be those patchy morning clouds near the coast, especially in the mornings over the next few days, and after some weekend cooling, we will begin to turn a little hotter again next week. In the meantime, there are areas with heat advisory to the north, and locally, Borrego Springs and points east under an excessive heat warning. So still some hot weather out there, although that will come to a conclusion temporarily for the weekend. And tonight we're on track for a cooler 55 in Ramona, 59 into Mount Laguna, Oceanside 62. We look good in San Diego at 66. Turning the page to the day tomorrow, on Saturday, we're going to be back up to around 107 in Borrego Springs. At least we're not making it to 110. It's going to be hot, though, into some of those typical hot spots. Mount Laguna 80, Ramona 93, 77 in San Diego. Delightfully pleasant weather, aside from some morning clouds near the coast on Saturday. The early week forecast holds on to the warm weather, and it's dry still in the southwest, except for a few spotty thunderstorms in parts of Arizona. So the coastal forecast, we begin to warm back up into the low 80s on Tuesday, but it will not be terribly hot. As we turn the page to the inland forecast, 86 on Sunday, that's nicer, but we're back up to 90 come Wednesday. Into the mountains, we go down to 75 Sunday and Monday, and then in the new week, back up to 80 come Wednesday. And the hot spots, the deserts do back off all the way down to 104 on Monday, but next Tuesday and Wednesday, we're back up to around 110 degrees. I'm meteorologist Jeff Cornish for KPBS News.
Now a tropical depression, Laura, has killed at least 13 people and hundreds of thousands are left without power in Louisiana, Texas, and Arkansas. Laura was downgraded from a hurricane, but it is now making its way across the south toward the Atlantic Ocean at 150 miles per hour. Homes and businesses have been demolished, and now the focus is on the cleanup.
It's very overwhelming, and, my in-laws, they live here. It's for his that property has been in his family since the 40s.
And while coastal regions were mostly spared the predicted unsurvivable storm surge, residents who stayed behind say they have learned a lesson. The storm may be over now, but the efforts to clean up are just starting. A San Diego charter school superintendent was quietly fired in June amid reports of misconduct, but he may collect a hefty payout anyway. Here's News Source investigative reporter Jennifer Bowman with more.
Records obtained by iNewsSource show the O'Farrell Charter School fired its superintendent, Jonathan Dean, in June after he was accused of misconduct involving a female staffer. Dean collected nearly $100,000 in salary as the Southeastern San Diego school investigated the claim against him, and he's now eligible for $250,000 in severance. Details about the alleged misconduct have not been disclosed, and Dean denies any wrongdoing. He's now in a legal fight with the school and says he hasn't received the severance. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource investigative reporter Jennifer Bowman.
iNewsSource is an independently funded nonprofit partner of KPBS. The party is over. Airbnb says it has suspended or removed 17 San Diego County listings as part of a crackdown on party houses. The company says the listings were suspended after complaints called into its neighbor hotline. Airbnb recently banned large gatherings and capped capacity to 16 people. San Diego's city attorney recently took legal action to shut down a Bankers Hill property. MGM Resorts is laying off 18,000 people in the latest wave of job cuts announced this week. Casinos in Nevada reopened in early June, but the demand is still not there. According to the Wall Street Journal, the CEO says affected employees may be rehired if the demand for travel returns. The news comes after airlines also announced major cuts this week. SDSU's Miro Kopik has more in this Friday Business Report.
This week, American Airlines announced that they were going to lay off over 40,000 people. Delta and United both announced the furloughing of over 2,000 pilots each. And cumulatively, the industry is going to announce between 80 and 100,000 layoffs on October the 1st. Only Southwest Airlines has made a commitment not to furlough or lay off people until the end of 2020. But even then, the airlines are facing a dramatic drop in air traffic. And what's more, in a recent survey showed that consumers are more concerned about catching COVID on an airline than they are in their daily lives. So this is a major issue, and with Congress out till the end of this month, and in September there's going to be a lot on their agenda, because in October most of Congress will be off to campaign for the elections. This becomes a really critical month for the airlines.
Late but not forgotten, Major League Baseball is celebrating Jackie Robinson Day. Normally it's on April 15th, but the pandemic forced the delay. Robinson, of course, broke the color barrier in baseball in 1947. The celebration comes as thousands today marched on Washington calling for racial equality. Robinson and his family were on hand back in 1963 for the speech by Martin Luther King Jr. All players today, including the Padres, will wear Robinson's number 42. The NBA playoffs are set to resume tomorrow after players decided not to take to the court for 2 days in protest of Jacob Blake's shooting and racial inequities. Today, the NBA and the National Basketball Players Association reached an agreement to continue. They will establish a social justice coalition to focus on issues including voting access and criminal justice reform.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, President Trump uses the White House as backdrop in a speech filled with attacks on Joe Biden. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
And here's a recap of today's top stories. Governor Newsom announced a new 4-tier color-coded system for tracking the coronavirus across California. San Diego County falls in the red tier 2. It means that a host of businesses can resume indoor operations on Monday. And that includes salons and barbershops, houses of worship, restaurants, and gyms. Some of those businesses have different limits on capacity. All schools across the county have the option of reopening on Tuesday. Blossom Valley and El Cajon plans to welcome kids back to campus after Labor Day weekend with safety measures like face coverings, temperature checks, and socially distanced desks. And Lakeview Elementary is doing a few weeks of online learning before giving parents the option of sending children for in-person learning. And San Diego County theme parks are eager to reopen, but the state hasn't given the okay just yet. If allowed to welcome back guests, Legoland is promising reduced capacity, temperature checks, social distancing, and face mask requirements. Today, SeaWorld opened for a special food and beer event that will happen every weekend through September. It's only allowed to operate as a zoo. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi, and we leave you now with music from The Sacred Souls, the latest local artist in our summer music series.
I was meditating on love and you and roses, and the universe told me, put it in a love song. Being a part of these Sacred Souls for me is probably going to be a highlight of my career. You know, get to make music with people you enjoy who have a similar mind to what you guys are going to create together, and just being a part of the cloth that is soul music, but doing I think a good job to be our original selves in this soul tradition.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.